Welcome back to Dirty Laundry. On today's episode, we are talking to Kristen Harcourt, business coach, speaker, podcast host, and emotional intelligence expert. So buckle up. We are here to talk about how EQ shows up in all your relationships. So welcome back to another episode of Dirty Laundry. Today we have Kristen Harcourt, and we are going to talk all about EQ because that is your jam.
Yes, it is.
How did you get into it? Tell us all about this.
Yeah. So I've been really in the world of emotional intelligence for the last 20 years, I would say.
Amazing.
And it came from me noticing in leadership. I do a lot of work when it comes to company culture and leadership and helping leaders to be more effective leaders. And a lot of leaders don't wake up in the morning saying like, oh, I can't wait to go into work today and be a jerk. Like, I can't wait to create havoc and make it difficult for everybody I work with.
Here's hoping.
Right? They don't want to do that.
Okay.
But a lot of them have not learned the skills, especially when you look at some of the more technical fields where you have these linear experts.
Yes.
Law and lawyers and mediation, some of those areas. But you also have things like engineers and tech and finance and all of these people, super, super smart. But no one pulled them aside and said, oh, by the way, when you're going to be leading and managing people, you need to be emotionally intelligent.
Right.
Which is about learning how to be able to connect with others, understand what's happening in your internal landscape, and create emotional safety and be able to do emotional regulation. And so I became super passionate because I realized so many people, they just don't know what they don't know. And it's not something you either have it or you don't. It's a skill that's very teachable, very learnable, if you are motivated and have the desire to want to improve and get better in those areas.
So that was going to be my exact question, because I often say the same thing about communication. No one is really taught how to communicate. So we're role modeling whatever we see around us, which if those people weren't taught, it's kind of the blind leading the blind, really.
Yeah.
And so EQ is the same. This could be a learned skill.
It's not like IQ where you're born with a certain level that you can reach.
Exactly.
EQ is a learned thing that you can, and if you know that you have low EQ, you can work on yourself and increase it.
Exactly. And I would say every single one of us have areas that we can improve on, right? So it's not even anyone who has this, like you get to this place and you're a fully evolved human.
Graduated
I am like, if you've ever are triggered or activated, that's your emotional intelligence. And if you get to a place where you are never triggered and activated, like great, you are, I guess, a fully evolved human. But I don't know about you, but there are times every day where I'm getting activated.
Yeah.
But the goal with EQ is to recognize, so you start to notice, ooh, something's going on for me right now. I'm getting those physiological signs that I'm getting pretty activated. And so you learn, instead of going around in the world constantly reacting to everything that happens around you, you start to become better at responding.
So this is tying into emotional regulation then as well. Okay, so we acknowledge the trigger and then we do whatever we do to kind of regulate our emotions and have the correct response.
Yeah, you start to notice like, what situations do I feel more triggered? And then that starts to be like, oh, in these particular moments, that's something that I have to work on. And then also when it comes to the emotions, again, like nobody pulled us aside when we were little, and they are doing it now with future generations. I see it with my kids, like they'll come home with a feelings wheel.
Yes.
Like when I saw the feelings wheel, I just like my heart wanted to burst. I was so happy because no one ever taught us when we were little. Like I talk a lot, name it to tame it. Like just starting to recognize like, what are you experiencing? And you have this whole repertoire of these different emotions and feelings. And then you start to get clear around, okay, this is what's going on. Okay, let's reverse engineer a little bit. What was happening earlier that got me to this place? You know, it's even when you think about your workplaces, so many times people are coming to work and they're already activated because of something that happened at home.
Totally.
Right. They're bringing it into
work.
How can you not?
Because you're human.
Yes.
You're human. Like the goal is not to not have emotions. Emotions are amazing. That's your aliveness. That means that you're showing up as a human. We don't want robots walking around, right? And vulnerabilities, even be able to express that you're having big emotions, be able to share. And so my experience that's been so interesting is that I saw that so often in my workplace, and saw that so often even in my coaching with executives. We're not just working on what's going on at work. We're working on what's happening at home because you're a full person. Yeah. And as you start to evolve and get stronger in all these places, it impacts all relationships. Relationships at home, relationships with your children, relationships with at work, out in your community. And I always say with your kids, like your kids are your biggest teachers.
Yeah.
Like they're going to trigger you all day long.
All day long.
And that's your work to do,
Yes.
right? So often we want to make everything external, just like make it all perfect and that'll make me better. If they could just all do what I wanted them to do, then my life would be so much happier. No, the goal is to learn, okay, what's going on with me? How can I support myself through these moments where it feels really challenging, where emotions are coming up? And my experience is so often working with everyone, like leaders, individuals, is there's really a lack of self-compassion. And so when they are feeling activated, they can be shaming themselves. They can feel like, I shouldn't be like this. I should be able to figure it out.
Right.
I'm so super smart. I'm so ambitious. I do all these other things. Why can't I figure this thing out? As opposed to, no, you're having a really normal human experience. How can you use this as an opportunity to be able to almost self-soothe, to take care of yourself in a different way and give yourself some of the things that you might have not gotten as a child when you were having big emotions because your parents didn't have the tools to know how to support you when you were feeling big emotions. And they're just like, oh, go to your room, get away. I don't want to be around this.
Yes.
Well, now it's an opportunity to both parent yourself, to self-parent, and then be able to show up differently for our kids too.
Yeah. When my kids were little, I would have friends that were like, oh, do you do timeout? And I go, yeah, for me. I put myself in a timeout.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm going to react.
Totally.
I'm going to yell at them. I'm going to scream. That's not helpful.
Exactly.
So it was definitely like, okay, mom will be back in 2 minutes. Make sure they're safe.
And sit in the closet.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Put in the closet,
like,
washroom.
Who hasn't
cares?
sat in the closet and just been like,
right.
I need to breathe.
And let it
Yes.
out.
Like,
And that's
just
so
breathe.
amazing to be able to model to them, saying like, just to let you know, I'm feeling a lot right now.
Right.
And so I'm going to go take care of myself.
Yeah.
And so then they realize, oh, that's okay.
It's
Because
okay.
mommy
Yes.
is also a human who is imperfect,
Yeah.
perfectly imperfect. We
Yeah.
all are.
Right.
And then they realize, oh, maybe the next moment when they see you do that, they might be somewhere where there's a lot going on and they might say to their friends, I'm just noticing I'm feeling a lot right now. I'm going to have to take a time out.
Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful because as a single parent, we
Mhm.
so often want to just put on the face that we have our shit together all
Yes.
the time, right?
Yes.
We feel the extra pressure to do it, right? Because there's not another parent there that you can just hand off to.
Yes.
So it's you feel like all eyes are on you. So to be able to say to your kids, actually, you know what? I'm just having a rough day today, or it's a lot today going on. So just give mommy a minute, I think is amazing.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And it shows vulnerability,
Exactly.
right? In that moment. And then also, guess what? You are going to have an outburst. You are going to not show up well sometimes.
Right.
The best thing you could possibly do is model repair.
Yeah.
And apologize. You know what? Like, you know what?
Exactly.
I'm so sorry. I've just been so overwhelmed with this thing. Nothing to do with you. I just have a lot going on.
Yeah.
To be able to say that to your kids so that they don't internalize it too.
Well, exactly. That it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so important. We were talking a bit offline about this, like, how we were raised and what was appropriate back then.
Yes.
And it was not appropriate for girls, for women to self-advocate and go, I need a time out. I need to take a break. I laugh at like the old like Victorian, fainting couches and things at the time, way back when we were, such delicate flowers.
Swoon. I'm going to swoon.
Right.
Exactly. But now it's like, you can be a mom and a boss. You can do it all. And it's like, but when do we rest? And so instead, we need to be role modeling that. And so myself in particular, I have a daughter. I want to show her it's okay. You don't need to perform and you don't need to be social and you don't need to do all of these things all of the time. And so we'll often, we'll come back from an event where we've been really social and she'll be like, I'm overstimulated. I'm going to go lie down with a book. It's just the proudest moment.
Yeah.
It is that self-regulation. That's her noticing this is what's happening in my internal landscape. How can I take care of myself right now? And what I love with what you just said there too, in terms of how we've been socialized, especially with women, anger is a bad emotion. You shouldn't be showing anger. No, there's a lot of times where I'm angry and especially ragey with some of the things going on in the world right now. And I'm going to give myself space to be ragey, but I'm not going to direct it at others.
Exactly.
I'm not going to direct it at my kids. I'm not going to direct it to my partner. I'm going to like sometimes my son and I, when he's feeling big things, we punch into the pillow. He's got his boxing thing downstairs where he'll punch that.
Love it.
I show him how to scream into a pillow. Like when I was going through my separation, there were times where the kids didn't know what was going on. And so I had to find, there was times where I felt anger and rage and then other times massive crying. And I knew it was so important. I do this work, so I need to release it.
Right.
So I would go for these drives. And I remember one time being in a parking lot and I was like doing a lot of screaming and letting it out. And then I started to realize like, can people hear me outside the car? Because then I thought, next thing you know, someone's going to call like 911.
Totally.
There's like something happening in this parking lot. This lady screaming. I'm like,
no.
hi, I'm
She's
just
going through a
releasing. I'm
divorce.
just processing my emotions right now. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm okay. But like, it's so important. And I think, especially with what you were saying, like, as moms, you want to like make it seem like you always have it on, you have it figured out. And sure, I'm not going to scream and cry and everything to that degree. It was a lot. It was like guttural. Like there was a lot that needed to be released, and that could be a bit scary for them.
For a child.
Definitely.
But, I'm going to do that in the car still. I'm not going to push it and suppress it and repress it.
I think it's a fine balance of showing children your human side versus showing them the extreme.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So someone who is going through extreme grief or extreme something, divorce, something that is sort of outside the realm of everyday.
Yeah.
We have to shield our kids.
They're still children.
From that too, because we don't want them to feel like the parent, right?
Yep.
And then they're responsible for your emotions, which I've seen my clients. I'm always telling my clients, I'm like, I know you're having these feelings and you need to express them. Maybe it's through therapy, maybe it's through a friend, maybe an adult friend, right? But your kids are not your sounding board.
So important what you're saying there, Amanda, because I think that goes back to at the beginning, we were talking about boundaries, right? And so even with the vulnerability, I hear sometimes leaders define vulnerability, and Brene Brown has talked a lot about this too when it comes to, right? I love all of her stuff about vulnerability, but she talks about what vulnerability is and what vulnerability is not. And so sometimes leaders will think too that they're just going to, to be vulnerable, I'm going to tell them everything that's going on behind the scenes. It's like, no, you're in that role because there needs to be boundaries, and there's certain things that are not appropriate for you to be sharing. And as you're saying, in terms of your kids, like it's not their role to be parenting you.
No. Exactly.
And so, but there's discernment that's required, right? You're checking in, like, is this one of those moments? And again, this isn't about perfection. There's going to be times where you might realize, like,
you said too much to them, or you didn't say enough.
I shared a little bit too much there. I'm sorry. I didn't,
but
that wasn't appropriate for me, right?
We're allowed to make mistakes.
Yes.
The conclusion, the antidote is the repair.
Exactly.
I think that's the messaging that most parents, and especially the ones we see that are going through divorce, that are in this hardest time, that feel maybe like failures, like they've screwed up their kids, all this stuff.
They've said too much. They've shared too much. They've been too vulnerable. You can dial it back.
You can
say, you know what? Mom was going through a really, difficult time, and I think I shared stuff with you, or Dad could say I shared stuff with you that was maybe adult things, or for us, Mom and Dad, to worry about. You know, you can say that.
Yeah. And I often say to my parents, they'll be like, I'm really worried about this. What are they doing? Their sibling. I'm like, that's okay. I'm the parent. I got it.
Yes.
You get to just be the kid. I have to.
Yeah.
I have an eldest who is very empathic and, very, we all kind of defer to his sister. She gets her way a lot more of the times. And, and there has to be this like, no, you don't have to share, or you don't have to be the parent in this. Allow me to do that job.
Right. And I also, that's something I want to work on her not doing, because when you start to do your work, and I feel like it took another level once I went through my separation, where I started to notice like what were the things that were going on in my relationship in terms of where there was codependency, where there was overfunctioning, where there was people pleasing. And so I don't want her to now learn the same thing and feeling like she needs to overfunction as a young woman either, right? Like that's not her role to play.
How do you set kids up then for, not getting into those relationships?
Right.
Those toxic, everyone uses the term toxic now, those toxic relationships, codependent, anxious attachment, love bombing, gaslighting, all the words.
Right.
How do you prevent them from getting into that and encourage them towards healthier, calmer, supportive,
I think this is an important discussion, right? I think one is being able to have conversations and open conversations around that, around what it looks like to advocate for yourself. What is, like, we have a lot of conversations around what is gaslighting and what does it look like when you're getting to those people pleasing things. And sometimes I share, again, with boundaries, with what's appropriate. When I was on, I'm still on, but when I started to get into my dating journey, and maybe it's inappropriate to share some of that.
No, please do.
I think that has been so good.
This is dirty laundry. Nothing is off limits. We love to hear about the dating.
I think honestly, it feels like when it's been almost a year that I've been dating in a great relationship for the last 5 months. So I'd say like the first 6 months, it was just getting back out there after 25 years. Like I went on my last date 25 years ago. So the dating landscape has changed drastically.
Yes,
there
it
were no
has.
apps when I was dating. And it's so interesting because I know all of this stuff. I'm teaching all of this stuff, but then you get into dating. It's like, okay, so I'm getting on dating apps, and because it's all new, you have to be in the messy middle. And so you can't be at mastery. And I talk a lot about growth mindset, that don't want to have a fixed mindset, but in the growth mindset is I can't know what I don't know until I actually get the exposure to what I don't know.
Right.
And then you start to notice like, okay, so you're going into this place where there's going to be all different types of people. And there's a whole spectrum around. Some people might be a little bit dysfunctional and some people might be okay. But it takes trial and error. It takes starting to know what you want. And sometimes you don't know until you're actually in the situation and you're experimenting and you're exploring. And then you're realizing like, oh, I'm not okay with this. But you don't, like when you're starting to sit down and think about your vision. And I was intentional around like, this is my vision for dating. And I'm not looking for a project this time. I'm not dating for potential. Like wherever you are is where you are. And that's like, I'm good with that or I'm not.
Well, I'm not going to change you.
I'm not going to change you, right? Like this is where you are. Like we
accept
all
them
come
for where
with
they
our
are
stuff.
now. Not
Exactly.
what you hope them
I'm not
to be.
interested in, I did that in my marriage. And I was always like, this will be the catalyst. This will be the catalyst. And I stopped waiting for catalysts. I'm like, I don't think the catalyst is happening.
No.
So that's okay. Like you're where you are on in your journey and you're okay with that. I'm not. The gap's feeling too big. And that doesn't feel good for me anymore. Yeah. But some of the things, even when you have the vision, you don't know till you're in it, right? Then I start dating and I see these like, where there be inconsistent behaviors or hot and cold.
Yes,
or
I'm not here for that.
I don't do
that.
And then they
Playing
would
games.
make plans and then they would
They're
cancel
so
at the last
and they're
minute.
not.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, what's going on here? Like what? I don't understand. Like, and then it started to become clear. Oh, okay, this was great. I'm keep on getting some data. Here's some more data for me. The data is I need somebody who is consistent. I need somebody who's reliable. But when I first did the vision, that wasn't at the top of my list of things, right? I was like, okay, I want someone who's emotionally available. I want someone who's emotionally mature.
Yeah.
But I wasn't as like getting into like, what are those micro behaviors?
Right.
Oh, I need somebody who is going to show up and be consistent. And actually, I prefer steadiness. I don't want the chaos.
Right.
But you can sometimes feel that there's something about the chaos because there's an intensity.
Right. So how do you differentiate that, or how do you protect yourself from that? Right.
Yes.
Because that chaos, that high energy can be attractive.
Right.
But
Exactly.
it's not sustainable.
It is not
And
sustainable.
it's long term. It's just not going to.
It's not,
end well.
and it also feels good because that person's giving you a lot of attention and a
messaging
lot of
you all the
messaging
time.
and energy, right?
When are we going to see the next? It's like
it's not sustainable. So what I started to notice is really paying attention to my nervous system.
Okay.
And when it's the right person, what I started to notice was different is, sure, you could feel that intensity, like you liked it when it was going well, but then it was like the highs and the lows. And then the lows, my nervous system was like, I don't like this. It feels so dysregulated.
Right.
Whereas when I started to feel the relationships that felt good and they were my kind of person, there was this nice steadishness, right? Like the nervous system. Of course, there's always going to still be times where it's
People like
it's new
get you,
and dating and some of those, if I am going to, from an attachment style, if I am going to default, I'm pretty securely attached, but if I am going to default, it's anxious attachment. So these things where the nervous system's like, oh, I haven't seen a text, like what's going on?
Right.
It creates stories and things like that.
Yes.
It's not going to completely disappear, but such a huge part of emotional intelligence is you're not in it, you're the observer noticing it, and you start to watch yourself and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Let's look what's going on here right now. What's actually happening here? Let's slow it down. My nervous system is feeling like, what's the story I'm creating? And I'm sure you'd also find like all the things that go on right now too, when it comes to dating too. And you start to notice like back in the day, which I didn't realize, all of the brainwashing, like, all my Disney fairy tales and I want to be chosen and I'm not being chosen. And like, so then if I'm not hearing from you, does that mean, and all of the stuff around abandonment, like all these things start to come up.
Yeah.
But emotional intelligence is, I'm not going to run away from it, but how can I slow it down? How can I be mindful? How can I support myself in getting curious? Like so much of my dating journey was around curiosity, right? Like what's going on right now? Like, and not so much like, why am I spending so much time being curious about them?
Right.
And not enough time being curious about me. Like, what's this here to teach me? Like, where am I self-abandoning in any ways because I want to be chosen or I want this person to, no. Like it's about me choosing me. And are they the person who's going to complement what I'm trying to create here?
I think this deserves a minute if we may dive deeper.
Yeah.
Because it kind of reminds me a little bit of boundaries, right?
Yes.
So we're all getting better at learning boundaries and putting up these boundaries. And I think a lot of people mistake a boundary with something that you're going to do versus I am going to do this and you do whatever you're going to do. But this is a boundary I'm holding for myself. And the way you're speaking about emotional intelligence gives me that same kind of thing, which is I think, and maybe it's the job that we do, but I'm always curious about why are they reacting this way? What has come up for them versus, oh, I need to look inwards and go, why am I feeling these ways? Why am I activated? And staying curious more about how you're responding and reacting to things. And so again, it's this idea of looking inward versus constantly looking outward. And it seems like on the right path. So say more about that. How do we look inward? How do we stay curious? Because you've already hit it. We do judgment, we do shame. Then we want to ignore all these horrible feelings. We don't actually get to tap in. So how do you stay curious without judgment, without trying to analyze, but rather just to take in, as you say, the data?
Yeah, because I think that's where it starts to be, you can never, too much time is spent externally that if all of these things would be all right, then I'll be okay.
Then I'll be okay.
And guess what? There's always going to be something, right? You might be able to control that for a little bit and then something else is going to happen because that's the way the world works, right? From everything, like not just humans, it's just like coming over here, I got tons of traffic. I'm like, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about this in this moment. I'm glad that I consciously give myself extra time so I'm okay. That's the learning that might come from this. But I can't control traffic, right?
Control it.
And you can't control humans as well. And so that's such a big part of coaching and the work that I do with leaders, whether that's in a workplace, whether that's in relationships and dating and parenting, all that kind of stuff. We need to reverse where we're spending all our time because we're trying to like get them to do all the things
fit
just
them
right.
into a mold
if
that
they
we
can
want.
stay in this nice little mold, then I'm going to be okay. That's not gonna, it's not sustainable.
Unrealistic.
You're never going to be able to maintain that. But what you can control is you. And you can control, okay, what do I need? So again, with when you were talking about the boundaries, it starts to be about, okay, so when I continue to stay true to my boundaries, which means, this particular behavior is not acceptable. Boundaries means I'm also going to maybe have a difficult conversation and say, we've talked about this and I feel like the same thing keeps happening. How are we going to work on this together?
Right.
And then you might start to see the same pattern happening over and over again. And that person's just really not interested in. And you holding the boundary is like, okay, so this might not be the person for me. Like I'm not going to invest in this anymore because if you continue to reinforce the boundary, but they're not willing to meet you halfway with the boundary, then that's not going to be a person. Now, there's other times where the boundary is, they're figuring out things, you're figuring out things, but you're so right. Like the boundary is ultimately you're the one. And my experience so often with clients, and especially women, is self-abandoning happens over and over and over again. Like integrity for me is being true to what you say when it comes to you, like honoring, you said you're committed to this. And again, you'll hear me say this all the time, progress over perfection. You never are going to perfect it. It's not about that.
Right.
But it's learning those moments where you said something. And my kids are such a great example of this as well. I can see the times where I'm not really holding the boundary. Like I'll say, no, you're not, like you can't do that. And then they'll do the thing that they're not. And I'm just like, remember we talked about that. But did I do anything where there are really serious consequences about that? Like, did I make it clear that can happen? So then I am sending some mixed messages. It's like, well, it doesn't seem like the boundary is really that solid because she said it, yet I did this.
Right.
Like with my son having chocolate cake 2 days in a row now. This is a very recent example where, I leave the house and 10 o'clock at night, he's having chocolate cake. I could just say, you know what? The chocolate cake will not be entering the house anymore because you struggle with impulse control. And same thing with ice cream. Like every time he's like, no, Mom, this is going to be different. Because every time, 2 days, it's always 48 hours. The whole ice cream is gone. 48 hours.
Hungry.
And I say,
The growing
listen,
boy.
right? And every time he's like, no, Mom,
Midnight
this
snack.
time it's going to be different. Like it's going to be 5 days.
Sweet.
It's going to be 5 days.
That's sweet
And
tooth,
I
that
say, I know you believe in your heart. I know you do. You believe in your heart. It could be 5 days. But I'm the mom and I know you and I know how you struggle with impulse control because you see the ice cream and you can't say no. So, we're going to pick a different snack that I know that you're not quite as like the temptation. You don't struggle with it the same.
Yeah.
So I think boundaries are, and again, they're not, they're constantly evolving, but it's noticing what that is for you and staying consistent with those boundaries. But overall, with everything I think we just said there, the most important piece is also around being more conscious around what's going on for you and what can you continue to control, especially when you start to think, like a lot of people were really interested in how things have been so good with our co-parenting. And that's because I also I pick and choose things, right? Like sometimes he'll come to the house and I'm like, he's on brand. Like he's totally on brand. Like he's not doing anything different. Like, so why am I going to it's not my role anymore to make him, to try to encourage him to be a different person. Like you're just being on brand. So I'm not going to, now I just kind of giggle and it doesn't do anything. Whereas, 5 years ago, I'd be like, that's and make it into a big thing because I want him to be behaving differently. And in a relationship and in a partnership, that does look a bit different because that's, again, boundaries.
Right.
Now, if he did something that was inappropriate, I'm going to have a conversation around it, but it's going to come from a very grounded place. And that's very different than when you're super triggered and activated and wanting to control how that person's being. Very, very different way of responding.
What about empathy? Where do we see this showing up? Because I find empathy can sometimes teeter into people pleasing or codependency.
Yes.
Or, again, self-abandonment, right? Putting your needs last.
Yeah.
What's that?
Those are where it's over-indexed and that's not healthy empathy, right? So you hear when people talk about empaths too, which when it's empath is you're taking on as if you're experiencing it as well.
Yeah.
That's not healthy because now you can't support that person as well because now, and it's interesting with HR because a lot of HR leaders go into HR because they're so highly empathetic, but then they're all day long having people as employee relations talking about all their things and wanting to take care of them. And then they're taking it on. Yeah. Unfortunately as well, this has been so much in 2026 where there's been a lot of downsizing and having to let people go. And you can have compassion and empathy if empathy is used properly, which is I can feel what it must be like to be in your shoes. I know I'm not there, but I empathize for what that must be like. But I'm not taking it on as if I'm also experiencing it. There's boundaries. Yeah. Right. There's the boundaries around the empathy that's not mine to take on. But it can also be really healthy because what empathy is and what it's not, because sometimes people feel like their way of being empathetic is, I know exactly how you feel because I had this thing that happened last week.
Oh my gosh.
That's actually not empathy.
I get that
You're
all the time. I said the
Right?
other day, I had a mother and she meant well. But she came up to me in the schoolyard and she said, I know what it's like to be you. My husband's been on a work trip for a couple days and I've been a single mother. And I'm like,
no,
the same.
No.
And I just was just like, I was walked away. So I was just like, no. And I know she meant well, but saying that was insensitive.
Right.
Because you don't know the mental load, the emotional load, the cumulative, aspect of being a single parent. It's not just
for weeks.
Right. A one-off weekend when your husband's out of town.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah. And so it's so the distinction is it's more when you're really being empathetic, it's making people feel seen and heard and witnessed and validated, right? Because their experience might not be your experience and how you would so often in workplaces too, you'll see things where not just in workplaces, relationships as well, right? Something happens, let's just say between the two partners. And for the one person, they're like, that's no big deal. It's like a blip. The other person, it's like, that was massive. That was such a huge thing. Yeah. And it doesn't matter, just because for you, the person who's like, that's a blip, that's nothing. It doesn't matter if that's a blip for you. The fact is, for that person, it brought up a lot for them. And it's so amazing where you can say, I want to acknowledge, it seems like this was a lot for you. And I just really want to honor that. And then that person's like, oh, like, thank you for just witnessing and making me feel seen. Because there's many different reasons why, childhood wounds and all the different things, why that same thing was so much bigger for that person. But to be able to acknowledge that and just say, and that's such a huge part of empathy, right? A huge part of EQ is understanding your emotional landscape, but also being able to validate and acknowledge the emotional landscape of others. And the better you get at doing that for yourself, the better you get at doing it for others. That's why it starts with you.
This is so important for the work that we do. So for those listeners that are going through divorce, how do they show up? Like, how can you, let's say in a session, you're on a 60-minute Zoom call with your ex and your mediator or your lawyer or whomever you're working with.
Yeah.
How do you, in real time, it's just not like, oh, let's take 5 and go journal. Like, we're sitting here and we're having incredibly difficult conversations. Yeah. And so on one hand, like, I love everything you're saying. Yes, validate, let's lower the temperature, let's do all these things, let's take a breath. But in reality, how does this play out? What does this look like?
Yeah. So a couple of things if we're using that example. Are they more often done in person or sometimes on Zoom or
for
both?
Us it's on Zoom.
We only do virtual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's great because that, like when you were talking earlier about the feet, like honestly, just even taking, like I've had clients do that where they literally like took their socks off or took their feet and made it so, because they might be having like their legs up and just literally putting your feet on the ground and like grounding in, like that's helping you to ground it in the moment.
Right.
Because it's so often in workplaces, it's the same thing. They're in the middle of the Zoom. They can't really in that moment be like, hey, I'm going to go for a little walk. And I'll be back and get some nature in. You can still take deep breaths, I would say, in that moment. We definitely do that where you're taking some breaths. I would also say, what can you do proactively before you're about to go into that Zoom, right? So could you give yourself 5 to 10 minutes? Like I am so often telling my organizations, like, can we stop this back to back to back to back meetings? Yes. Make your meetings 45 minutes or make your meetings 25 or 20 minutes. So at least they have the 5 to 10 minutes. Because what ends up happening, they're going from meeting to meeting to meeting. They're bringing the residue from the other meeting into the next meeting.
For sure. So true.
Right? So if you could just like intentionally realize, this is a high stakes conversation. I already know I'm more likely to be triggered in this kind of thing. For that individual, which is different for everyone, what helps you to get a little bit more grounded before? A walk, it would be awesome, but maybe it's just listening to some music for a second. For me, I like movement. So it might be just like dancing it out for a second, right? Like, so a lot of times before speaking, there's a lot of energy when you're about to do a big keynote. Yeah. And so you want to move that energy around. So you'll see a lot of keynoters in the green space. They're like shaking it out. You see that with improv too. They're like shaking their hands and shaking their legs. So even doing that, like doing that with your hands for people on video, but I'm moving my hands in there, by the way.
You look like you're doing that dance from the 90s holiday.
Yeah. So moving your hands and then shaking the legs, right? Like, because that's just, there's a lot of just energy in your body. So you just want to move through that energy. So even just doing that, like if you're about to get on the Zoom, that could require 3 to 5 minutes, right? To just do that moving around and sometimes even jumping, right? There's a reason why kids, when they're little too, you'll see all of that jumping because they have so much energy.
Excitement when they
right? You
jump.
see, like you could literally just get on your bed and like jump up and down on your bed for a little bit. But anything to be able to get that energy, that movement, to get it moving through you so that you're more grounded can be something
I talk
as well.
a lot about like closing the loop on the stress. So after my calls, like when I'm wrapping them up, again, if it's been a particularly heated negotiation, I'll be like, okay, your homework is 30 jumping jacks after we hang up before you go on to the next thing.
So
because
good.
I've learned that you got to close the stress. So again, I always give the example of a dog, which is they'll go wrestle, they pause, they shake it all off.
Yes.
And then they go off and pee or drink or eat or do whatever. But the first thing they do is shake it out.
Exactly.
Get rid of that stress. So that's typically homework I assign, but in the moment, that part's really tricky. So again, maybe this is a shout out PSA to practitioners to be like, can you take 30 seconds? Can you take 2 minutes to pause and go, okay, everybody turn your cameras off, stand up, jump around, like do something.
And I mean, as teachers, I'm a teacher, we do that in the classroom. I'm like, okay, it's getting too stale in here. Everyone's just got to get up and move. But in a mediation, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the person who's preparing to go into the mediation with their ex-spouse.
Right.
So you're not only are you with someone who maybe is not in tune to your feelings, but maybe knows you so well, right? Because
they know
you're
your
married
buttons.
to this person.
Yes.
So they are using their abilities to read you and know your triggers to actually push those buttons. How do you then hold it together?
Right. And I would say like our relationships are like that. Like even the ones who are not deliberately pushing the buttons, they are still pushing your buttons. Like they're not, they might not be in a manipulative way saying,
but in mediation, sometimes it is. And you could see the faces of someone who's just been, a button has been pushed. I can see it.
Yeah. So I would say you're doing the same thing as you would do if someone was doing it in an unintentional way, is like still taking care of yourself. Like in those moments when I'm being triggered, I know my default is to go here. What am I choosing instead? And being able to preemptively know, like, these are those moments where I tend to get more triggered, right? I don't know. There's a certain voice that the person might use, or this tone and this way they look at me or do that. So you know that about yourself. So in that moment, take a couple of deep breaths and be able to like slow it down. There's other things you can be doing for your nervous system to regulate it as well. Like sometimes I'll like go things like this. I'll take my hands and I'll, so just noticing yourself too, like what helps to self-soothe? Because what you're wanting to do is self-soothe in that moment. Again, try to be able to help that nervous system. And are there things that you know help you to be able to get more regulated as well? Is it because a lot of times if somebody else's energy goes up, then you go and meet that energy, right? So if their voice is going higher, can you deliberately not have your voice and still keep it in that? I do that with my kids all the time. Like those moments where I'm like, because they're up to here, and I'll say, okay, we need to have a conversation now. And they don't, they're like, what's going on?
Totally.
My kids call so creeped out. My kids are like, stop being a teacher. They go, because you turned into back into a teacher. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, okay. And now we're gonna, and they look at me. They're not. They're so annoyed.
I call it the mediator voice. They know.
Like,
they
or like
know.
they sound like. Sometimes they say to me, "You sound like you're talking to Alex on your show."
Exactly.
And I'm like, they're like, stop being like that.
Yes. My ex used to say that too. He used to be like, don't HR me. I'm like, I'm sorry, how am I HRing you? I'm just being calm and talking. And then he's like, you're coaching me right now. I'm like, I'm actually not. I coach you all the time. You just don't realize I'm coaching you.
I do it all the time.
I do it. But in this moment, I'm not really. I didn't even ask you any questions. But it's just noticing. And also, I think what's happening right here in this moment, how can you sometimes use humor as well to take away the tension, right? Like there's so many times where like when I was saying where my ex would come on brand, I would start laughing and giggling. Or when I would hear in my mind when I was getting to catastrophizing, I'm like, wow, that's quite the story your mind is coming up with right now. Like that is very elaborate. Like, good job, Kristen. Like very creative with this. And then I would just start laughing. And of course, laughing is such a great release that can. So even in that moment, could you just kind of like when it's like that, just kind of smirk to yourself and be like, here we go. Like you start to get better at being that observer and noticing like, ooh, I see where I want to go. We have the dance. We're about to go into this dance. And then I'm going to bring a different move to this dance. And the beauty is, like we know through neuroplasticity and creating new neural pathways, like it can be done, right? It doesn't matter what, like things that we've had ingrained in childhood for all these years. Right. It's just the more you're aware of this is my default and now I'm intentionally going to practice new behavior patterns, new way of responding. And the more I do it over and over and over again, then you start to create the new neural pathways and it can happen. Again, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's a dance. But I think just noticing, you could even ahead of time, like, what are all those things that I know that trigger? I keep saying him, but it's her, I'm sure, for some people too, him or her. Before we're going to go into this conversation. Okay, here's what I'm going to do in those moments.
Talk more about how do we remove the judgment from this? So like you did such a cute thing of like, oh, what a great story, Kristen, you just concocted in your brain. How creative you are, kind of putting a positive spin. But the default is, oh my God, you lunatic. I can't believe you just made up that wild story with no information. So how do we get to being able to just stay curious enough to laugh at ourselves, but in a kind, gentle way and give ourselves some grace? Because again, this is the most difficult time for a lot of people. That they're ever going to experience.
And there's a lot of unknowns.
And so they are nothing but unknown.
So they are creating
so
stories.
True.
Right? There are legitimately so many unknowns, Am I going to be able to stay in my house? Am I going to be able to see my kids every day? Am I going to be able to, travel? Am I
Pay for
going to be able to pay the
things.
bills?
Like,
Do I have to go back to work? Do I have to get a new job? Like these are things that are going on in the mind of a separated person. So how do you quiet that down?
So legitimate, first of all, I want to acknowledge, like that's 100% legitimate. And the interesting thing with mindfulness is the research shows that we have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And so it's not like the goal, right? So
I know.
So the thoughts are going to go there. It's not about making it so that there's no thoughts. It's just noticing what thoughts hook us and then how we respond to those times that they do hook us in. And so to speak to first what you were saying around the self-compassion, I think, or, the voice and noticing, because we all have the voice. Yeah. And we can all choose around how we respond to it. One of the things that I say is when you start to notice that inner voice, because a lot of people have a very strong inner critic, how would you speak to somebody you love? Right? When you look at that beautiful little child of yours that you love, would you ever speak to that child the way that you're currently speaking to yourself and like berating yourself and being so hard on yourself? And no, like if your child was saying like, oh, mommy, this is feeling overwhelming, like all these new things, like it's all because, they're experiencing ambiguity and all this uncertainty. You wouldn't say like, well, just suck it up. That's right. Exactly. You wouldn't say that. You'd say, well, of course that would feel like a lot. You start to get used to even saying to yourself, like, of course I'm feeling like this right now. There's a lot. There's all these unknowns. It makes perfect sense that I would feel like this with all these unknowns. And what starts to happen is when you start to have a lot of self-compassion for yourself and a lot of care for yourself in those moments, the energy shifts. It doesn't feel so big, right? It starts to like come down a little bit. And then you get back to which I think is so important when your mind is spinning, because a lot of my clients, we talk about the spinning, right? Where it just like, it gets into a spiral, right? And all those things. It's like, it's just, what's the next right thing I can do? Like, I can't, the mind wants to have it all figured out. But a lot of times if the mind just sees like, okay, I'm going to do one thing right now. What's one thing that I do have control over that I can take action on? So then the mind, you start to feel a bit of a sense of control. I saw this so often during the pandemic as well, right? Because people were just like, oh, there's no playbook for this. We just don't know. Like, what's this all going to look like? And so people started to find like, well, what can I control? And that gave them a sense of control. Like I know for me, like I love going to the gym, but I couldn't go to the gym. Right. So then I had a workout routine every morning for 365 days.
Oh, you were good.
But it was only for me because it was because that gave me a sense of control. Like I can't control all the stuff that's happening out there, but I can control my 50 push-ups. I can control my 50.
Didn't get a Peloton that is currently collecting dust in the basement. I'm like, I am going to be on it every day. I'm going to be the best shit of my life. And now I'm like, where is that thing again?
It's your clothes hanger.
My brother always says, how's your coat rack?
Yes.
I'm like,
it's
one of these days, I'm going to get back
I was like, I'm going to do my own workout. So it was like these push-ups, these push-ups and sit-ups and my yoga to be this like 45-minute routine that I would do every day. And that was giving me a sense of control in a time that you have all this ambiguity. Yeah. So I would say the same thing, right? Like, okay, it feels overwhelming, all these things, but what can you control? So what gives you a semblance of feeling a little bit more connected to yourself and a little bit. And of course, when we start to use something like exercise, great example, because we know exercise has got so much, if we start to think about dose, the positive things, so dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Exercise, especially if you're doing it outside or with somebody else, you're checking off all of those different things, which is countering when we think about the nervous system. It's helping in a very healthy way. Because we know we start to use numbing things, which are unhealthy things. So what are some healthy ways that I can, exercise is one that I'm going to get all these beautiful payoffs. And now those big things, they don't feel just quite as big. It's not going to go away. I'm not over here to say like, oh, it's fine. Just like, positivity. I don't like toxic positivity. This isn't about toxic positivity. This is about, okay, how can I take really good care of myself and through that feeling more resourced, then those same things don't bother me in the same way. I can hold a little bit of perspective around what's going on.
And you know what I like about this example is you're not suggesting, oh, go do some more research on how you can show up better or things that are in the same genre of what's about to trigger. So obviously we're talking here divorce. So instead of going to read other people's parenting plans or talking to people about it, what I'm hearing is actually just do something for yourself. Because that actually sets you up way better.
That can be routine that you can depend on. That's So sort of a distraction. That's different.
Exactly.
You don't have to immerse. I find that so many people are going through separation, divorce, especially ones that have more conflict,
Yes.
they immerse themselves. Their whole identity and their whole like day job is their divorce.
Yeah.
This is such a good point you're bringing up. And also it's so related to what goes on with my linear thinkers in the workplace, right? So heady.
Yeah.
So it feels I need to solve it, right?
Yeah.
I need to like use my mind to make this go away. But you'll notice so many things I'm bringing people back into their body.
Yes.
Right? Because when we get back into our body is like, okay, we're connected. And I don't want to dismiss like sometimes feeling like you understand something a little bit better. Like again, when I was going through getting back into dating, I got really interested in the attachment styles because I was like, what is this avoidant attachment style? Like, what are these people, this fearful avoidant or this, and they would do this ghosting stuff. And I was like, I don't get it. Like, why don't you I'm just someone who has a conversation. Like there was someone I'd been dating for like 3 months and they just all of a sudden ghost. And I'm like, I'm so confused. Like how old are we? Right? Like, exactly. Like this 16? Is a 52-year-old who, and the thing with this individual, what I found so interesting is, there was no red flags. It was all green flags, right? But as I did all my research, I started to understand a lot of times with this dismissive avoidant at 3 months, that's all of a sudden like, this is feeling real. I need to commit. And so that brings up so much in them. And so no signs whatsoever.
Withdrawal.
But person over here who's like, I don't have problems having conversations. I'm like, I'm a very approachable person.
Right.
If you just said, I don't even need to have a phone call. You can just text and say, you know, I'm just noticing this is getting a little bit too serious and I'm not ready for this kind of commitment. So I think we're going to have to
just
end. I would have been like, great, good to know. Like, that's awesome.
See, that's
I'm
somebody
fine
with
with
a lot of
it.
emotional intelligence.
I'm like, it's not a big deal. Like, this is fine. And so in that case, being able to get information was helpful because I needed to, it was unknowns.
Yeah, you
and
need
so
closure.
I needed to be able to understand like what's happening here. And I needed my nervous system's like, well, we didn't see any signs. Like from the hypervigilance is like, we're trained to be able to look for something. There's no sign. So what am I going to do next time if this happens? Because I don't have any data now.
Yeah.
Now I have the data that's like, oh, they're not going to give you closure. And so I'm like, oh, so I'll give myself my own closure. I'll send my own closure text for me.
Right.
Not for him. So that I know that I've said what I need to say so that I can move on.
Yeah.
But so I don't want to say that sometimes getting data, it's when you start to overanalyze
fixate.
and like fixating and obsessing, that's not good. That's spiraling. We don't want the spiraling.
My dating sort of mentality is to note behavior, but not correct it.
Right.
And so I know for some people, you know, I think there's a fine balance though, because you do want to communicate your needs and when things bother you.
Yes.
But I also feel like you have to take people for what they are.
Yeah.
And if you correct everything and make it perfect too soon, then you're not going to see the real person.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, note it. Like that didn't feel great, but okay, let's just note it.
Right.
Just
and
file it away.
Exactly. You file it away. And then you might pick and choose. You might say like,
that
this
bothered
is.
me. Oh, it happened again. I'm seeing a pattern here.
Exactly.
Is this something that really is going to bother me? Is this showing signs of something that's, you know, coming out?
I think what you said there is so important. It's a pattern.
Yeah.
Right. We're now starting to see this a consistent thing. If it's just this one-off thing, it's like, I'm just observing, just noticing.
Awkward and dating.
Right. There's that
you can
awkward.
Yeah.
But if it's like something someone's been insensitive or
yes.
they've been not responsive for like a long period of time and then they do that every, so often.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling.
Right. And then you're using your voice to advocate for also like, hey, something to let you know my preferences. Are I tend to like this. And then when that's not happening, I sometimes create this story. And then they're like, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that with me. Right. They're also, because I think a whole part of dating that I've learned, not just dating, even in relationships, like just being with another human, is they're not mind readers.
Yeah.
Right.
And so often we're like, well, why wouldn't you know that? Like, of course you should know that. It's like, no, they don't. So if you can, the more you can communicate, I really love, like, I'll say things like, oh, I really love when you're flirty in between, like when we're not seeing each other, because that makes me feel connected.
Right.
Or I really like when we have our good morning text, because that's like how I'm starting my day. So you figure out what those things are and you can communicate back to them. And then they might say, yeah, like sometimes I can't do the good morning because I feel like I'm busy with work. It's like, great. So like, what's a compromise? Like what's something that we could both do that might work? And it's being a team working together.
My question is, how do you know, like if you were to meet somebody, first date, second date, maybe not even a dating intimate relationship, maybe it's a work relationship.
Okay.
How do you know if someone is emotionally intelligent or lacking?
Right. I would definitely say with dating, it doesn't always, like, I think again with the extremes, like we see these like massive red flags that it's very clear. That would be like the very, very, very toxic EQ.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to getting to know someone, first of all, it's just knowing there is no one size fits all, and something that you really like, somebody else doesn't really like. I think it's also really important that you learn a lot through dating and relationships is that we all have different operating systems. And quite often we choose someone who has a different operating system than ours because that's interesting.
Yeah,
like it would be kind of boring. Like we say we want someone that's just like us, but if everything is always that they're not bringing in new things, like new ways of seeing things, new ways of approaching things. And like we kind of like the differences. So I would say number one, anytime you're going out and getting to know someone and doing dating, and of course, if we're looking inside workplaces as well, number one is curiosity. Like really try to get to know that person and show up from a place of curiosity and what they're all about. And then in terms of emotional intelligence, everyone's going to struggle. Like I'm just here to tell you, like we're all going to have our things. And I know, like, so I said people pleasing and overfunctioning for me. So that would be around the empathy and having too much empathy sometimes. Once in a while, difficult conversations I might avoid when it feels too vulnerable. So I think it's also noticing when it comes to emotional intelligence for each of us, what's most important to you? Like, what do you need to see a lot of with someone? Like, so some people might say I would think anyone who's listening, when it comes to emotional availability, they want someone who's emotionally available. That doesn't always show up. Like for people are on their best behavior for the first 3 to 6 months. So you have to be also open, like if there aren't any red flags, and like just let it evolve and see where things go, because there's still a lot, but all of us are performing in the first 3 to 6 months. Then as you start to feel more comfortable, the mask comes down. And then, so, I would also say like, be cognizant of that and be careful around what you do and what you commit to. And, you hear sometimes these stories of people like moving in and getting married like that quickly. I'm like, I would discourage that. Like, I would wait a little bit longer because you haven't really gotten to know who that person
or they
is
introduce them to the kids.
Right. There's so many different stages.
2 months in. It's like you don't even know that person yet.
But I think more, you might not even know yourself. Like what I see coming out of divorce and dating after divorce is a lack of trust of your own self. So
your picker is off.
Yeah.
You don't trust it.
How did I not notice all those red flags last time? How did I end up in that kind of relationship? Now I'm going to end up like there again. So I think, it's about going slowly for the kids, for yourself, for the other person to let their, true colors shine. All I'm hearing with all of this is a lot of inward looking, examining, a lot of curiosity without judgment.
Yeah.
And a lot of really figuring out what your needs are, what is important to you, what are your non-negotiables.
Yes.
Before you enter into a dating or into a new relationship.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the self-trust.
It's a big one.
And self-trust gets rebuilt through no longer self-abandoning.
Yes.
And so that takes time. And I think the other thing with all of this too is like, we don't need to rush this.
Yeah.
Like there's this, so often I see it in dating or relationships or whatever it is. Allow yourself to like go through the different stages and not rush it so that you can, because I was thinking as you were asking that question as well, someone could do really well in one area and not in other areas. So for example, and I see this even in workplaces, like they might be really good at managing up, but not as good with their peers. Or they might be really good with their direct reports, but not as well with building influence with their peers. So they could have high EQ in one area and not another area. And definitely with my significant other, like I felt pre-kids, like we were like great. Like it was like 8.5 years before we had kids. Then kids brought everything up. Everything up and really, really struggled with parenting. Yeah. I have a very collaborative parenting style. He came from command and control.
Right.
And so he's just doing exactly what he would have seen growing up. And of course, we know that fear-based parenting does not work very well for kids. And so that created a lot of conflict, a lot of clashes. And so, but yet if you saw him in the workplace, I think they would say like A+, like highest EQ ever. Right. So I also want to be conscious of where people struggle, it's not like a universal,
Yeah.
like necessarily you have it or you don't. You see so many like really ambitious, goal-oriented, like are killing it at work, and then they struggle at home, or they struggle with relationships and self-abandon and don't necessarily pick the right people because they're doing other patterns when it comes to the emotional intelligence. So it's also, it's you
So
could be struggling in
interesting.
one area, not another area. And the opportunity is just to continue to grow and learn and develop and evolve, because as you get stronger in one area, it'll of course contribute to how you're showing up in the other area, and then continue to just learning what that looks like for you, because honestly, there isn't. And then also, as you are in different seasons and different parts of your life, who you are in your 20s, then your 30s, then your 50s and your 60s, that starts to evolve as well. And so things that used to really matter to you, sometimes it's like, I don't really care. Like, I'm not making this into a thing anymore. So that can improve your EQ.
Well, and you talked about kids. Like, kids can be very triggering, but also their seasons of life, teenagers versus toddlers, can bring all kinds of different material up that you thought you had dealt with or, you know, had moved on. This has been such a fabulous conversation, Kristen. I feel like I could keep going for hours.
Where do people, if they want to work with you, they want your support, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I have loved this conversation as well. You asked such brilliant questions.
Thank you.
You can learn more about me at KristenHarcourt.com. And I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn as well. And I have a podcast as well called Inspirational Leadership that really talks about how do we help leaders transform from the inside out and in turn create really positive cultures. My really mission out there is to raise consciousness globally. And to that, I mean, when you start to improve as a leader, it's who you are as a leader in all areas of your life. So how you show up in the workplace, how you show up with your families, how you show up in your communities. And I think when we have more emotionally intelligent leaders in all of those in different areas, it creates a better world.
Yeah, we agree. 100%.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So great.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.